Don't you want a president that's gonna make America healthy again?
If you listen to the United States Secretary of Health, you hear a number of things. Food dyes, vaccines, and seed oils being the big three. Seed oils in particular are used by nearly every family at some point, nearly every restaurant in the entire world, and in nearly every home-baked good. These seed oils are made from things like sunflower, safflower, canola, soybean, corn, and many other things that doctors are telling us to get more of. So how could they be bad? Well, some claim that consuming seed oils is worse than smoking 7 cigarettes a day, which increases the yearly chance of death by 80%. So where's the truth? I'm not going to try to play the politics game today. I'm just going to look at what the data, the statistics, and the research has to say about the health effects of consuming seed oils. The first thing you gotta know is the 2 types of oils there are, when it comes to cooking at least. You've got olive and avocado oil in their own category. They're different from what people consider seed oils in some important ways. A seed oil is a cooking oil named after the plant, vegetable, seed, or nut that the oil came from. For instance, corn, canola, sunflower. These oils are the ones that have only been used for about 200 years and widely adopted in the last 60. The first modern example of this being used is in Crisco, which many of you currently have in your fridge right now. Crisco was made popular by Procter & Gamble for a really unsettling reason, actually. By the late 1800s, thanks to the cotton gin, cotton production was booming, despite one major nuisance to slave-owning plantation owners. Cotton production resulted in the buildup of toxic cotton seeds. Although these seeds could have oil extracted from them for a various amount of purposes, the unrefined oil was acutely toxic to both humans and animals when ingested. So when the candle maker William Procter saw an opening in the market, he partnered up with his brother-in-law and created a product around reducing the cost of soap and candle production through the use of cottonseed oil. However, they ran into a problem when the invention of electricity brought forth the issue of candles not being as necessary as they used to be. So they ended up creating a new product by transforming liquid cottonseed oil into a semi-solid fat chunk that was creamy and butter-like. They marketed it as a vegetable oil, even though it's not really what people think of when they think of vegetable. And then the success of this new product, which became Crisco, led to the explosion of many other seed-based oils, like soybean, corn, canola, safflower, sunflower, peanut. The list can go on. And all the while, all of the health claims of these vegetable oils were not checked because the FDA did not exist back then. And so people just had to trust whatever the companies told them was true about their products. Seed oils then had a huge boost in the 1960s when there was a high-profile man named Phil Sokoloff who suffered a heart attack at the age of 43 and blamed it on saturated fats that he was consuming from fast food restaurants like McDonald's. And so he spent over $3 million advertising how bad saturated fats were and urging fast food corporations to switch over to the unsaturated seed oils. 2 of his accomplishments during this time was creating the American Heart Savers Association in 1985, which still exists to today, and getting McDonald's to switch over from their previous use of beef tallow until the 90s to seed oils today. That leads us to the current day where the overwhelming amount of oil used to cook foods in restaurants are seed oils. So with us consuming so much of this stuff, this begs the question, is it actually bad? And well, it's complicated and pretty scholarly to figure it all out, so you're gonna have to stick with me here. One of the reasons that seed oils may be considered bad is due to hydrogenation, which is basically when hydrogen is added to the unsaturated bonds of seed oils in order to transform the liquid state into a semi-solid state. The negative effect here is that when you do this, you replace some of the unsaturated fat and turn it into trans fat, which is the worst fat, basically the worst nutrient you can consume for your health. Basically, it's really bad for your cholesterol, demolishing the good cholesterol and increasing the bad cholesterol substantially. It's so bad that the FDA says that you should not consume any more than 2.2 grams of saturated fat in any given day. But, for instance, a Dave's triple at Wendy's has around 5 grams of trans fat. But when it comes to hydrogenation, this isn't too much of a problem because there was a petition to the FDA to remove trans fats from the American diet in 2005. And by 2015, the FDA finally agreed that there was enough evidence to remove trans fats from the American diet. The petition to the FDA to remove hydrogenated oils from the American diet started in 2005, but it wasn't until 2015, 10 years later, when the FDA decided that there was enough evidence to say that hydrogenated oils were bad for the American diet. And so the FDA gave companies 3 years to remove any hydrogenated oils from their foods before they would be banned. So with all this, while hydrogenation is really bad, the chance of you actually consuming any is very low. So if we don't have any of this toxic stuff from hydrogenated oils anymore, are seed oils actually a problem? Well, here's where it gets scholarly. There's this process called oxidation, which, to save you a bunch of sciencey stuff that you can look up later if you want, ends up to reduce nutritional value and an increase of toxic chemicals. So while the trans fats from hydrogenated oils are over, oxidation is the new problem that seed oils may have. Now, nearly every food or drink that you consume can oxidize, but seed oils are uniquely affected by this process because of how weak unsaturated bonds are to this process, while saturated bonds found in animal fats are much more resistant. One of the consequences of oxidation is actually the chance of creating trans fats. However, this is not in large quantities. But other things include an increase in free radicals, which can damage cells and DNA, and also aldehydes, which can be potentially toxic, but also could be beneficial for you. So I mean, there's a lot going on here. With all this being said, you probably don't have to worry about these in your at-home cooking. Oxidation can happen at room temperatures, but it only gets to dangerous levels at really high temperatures and for longer periods. Oxidation can happen in a few minutes, but it's really after the 15-minute mark. But if you cook for less than 15 minutes, you're probably fine. However, it's fairly dangerous if the oil is being used for more than 20 minutes. And very dangerous if it's being used for 30 to 60 minutes. This is because of the compounding effect of heat. And it's also sped up by the process of reheating. And so maybe you can think of a place that does a lot of cooking at high temperatures for a long period of time and needs to reheat often for new food. That place is going to be restaurants. Restaurants may claim to have filtering systems to help prevent against these problems. But in many cases, these filters have been shown to stop particulates and not oxidized chemicals. But for something so common and so accepted in society, how damaging can it really be? So this is where it gets real sciencey with a bunch of words that I barely understand. But the main idea here is that it increases the amount of cell death, increases the chance of cancer cells, can disrupt sugar levels for diabetic and obese people, and may increase the fragility of older people. Sadly, even with all this information I'm giving you, this is from a limited study source, and seed oils are not heavily studied. And the current consensus among nutritionists is that the claims of seed oils being bad are largely exaggerated, and that animal fats and saturated fats are probably still worse for you to get than unsaturated fats. There is one scientific researcher that supports the negative effects of seed oils, but it is by far in the minority opinion. Most researchers in this field believe that switching from a high saturated fat diet to a high unsaturated fat diet, from switching from butter and other animal fats over to seed oils, is going to be beneficial for long-term health. This doesn't necessarily deal with the problems of oxidation and is merely about fats, but it's still important to keep in mind the consensus. But even with this consensus, the average American, according to Total Health Wellness, consumes around 5 to 10 tablespoons of vegetable oil per day. According to one article, a tablespoon of vegetable oil is around 120 calories. That means that the average American may be consuming 600 to 1,200 calories a day in vegetable oils. And one thing every nutritionist will agree with, except for the ones that are selling you on some new diet, is that a varied and balanced diet is a long-term good idea for long-term health. Consuming 600 to 1,200 calories of seed oils is not very balanced. And another reason for potential danger would be linoleic acid. This acid is actually necessary for survival, but is found so easily in other foods that deficiency is incredibly rare unless starvation is present. Overconsumption of these acids may increase the chance of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and more. But most people will be fine with their linoleic acid consumption as long as they don't eat out consistently. People who eat at restaurants like McDonald's and Chili's multiple days a week are the ones that will likely have too much linoleic acid. So basically, don't eat at the places that people have been telling you for your entire life not to eat at anyways. That's why some nutritionists advise you to consume other types of oils at home, because you're going to be getting so much of seed oils from those few times that you eat out. Using oils like avocado oil or olive oil or butter might be better at home. Maybe not beef tallow and lard though. Americans already have their consumptions of saturated fats quite high. Seed oils used to be a lot more destructive than they are today. But due to the banning of hydrogenated oils in the US, that part of seed oils is not to be worried about anymore. Currently, there is some evidence that seed oils are misused in the cooking process that may lead to many toxic chemicals in the process, but are in general safe for consumption, with many other health threats having way more data for being bad, like sugar, alcohol, obesity, drugs. But because we consume so much of these oils, it's probably a good idea for at-home cooking to consist of other oils and or butter. But seed oils aren't the only modern invention that we're tackling with in today's world. There's also plastics, specifically microplastics, which might actually be inside of your bloodstream right now as you speak. If you're interested in learning more about that, I got a video you can check out right here. And don't forget to use olive oil, make sure you're not getting propagandized, and think better. I'll catch you over in this video right here.